King Thrushbeard.
Princess Aurelia looked at the long line of suitors waiting in the grand hall.
We must remain patient.
To her, every prince seemed ridiculous, a collection of empty titles and puffed chests. Her father watched with growing desperation, hoping his sharp-tongued daughter would finally choose a partner to help rule the peaceful kingdom. Aurelia stopped in front of the young king with the pointed beard and let out a loud laugh. She told the entire room that his chin looked exactly like the beak of a thrushbird. The hall fell dead silent as the prince's face flushed with deep embarrassment, his pride wounded in front of everyone. King Robert reached his breaking point and declared a heavy vow. He shouted that Aurelia would marry the very first beggar who walked through the castle gates the next morning. Aurelia's smirk instantly vanished, her hands trembling as she realized her father was completely serious this time. The next morning brought a cold reality that Aurelia never expected. True to his word, the heartbroken king banished his daughter, marrying her to a traveling minstrel dressed in patched clothes. As the heavy iron gates slammed shut behind them, Aurelia looked down the long, empty road, realizing her life of luxury was completely over. They walked for hours into a vast, beautiful forest, where golden sunlight filtered through the thick canopy of leaves. Aurelia, exhausted and sore, asked who owned these magnificent woods. The minstrel gently replied that they belonged to King Thrushbeard. Hearing the name of the man she had mocked sent a sharp pang of regret straight to her heart. Soon they passed through a lively village filled with the sweet smell of fresh bread and the sound of laughing children. When Aurelia learned that this peaceful town also belonged to King Thrushbeard, her pride crumbled a little more. She realized the king she had laughed at was loved by everyone, while she was entirely alone. They finally arrived at a tiny, drafty hovel made of cracked stones and a leaking thatched roof. Aurelia gasped, asking where the servants and the grand rooms were. The minstrel unlocked the creaky wooden door and smiled gently, explaining that this was their home now, where they had to work together to survive. The next morning, Aurelia had to learn tasks she had never done before. The minstrel showed her how to light the fire and clean the floors, but her delicate hands were weak and untrained. Every mistake made her chest tighten with frustration, yet the minstrel never yelled, only showing her the movements again with endless patience. When cleaning proved too difficult, the minstrel brought home a bundle of willow reeds for weaving baskets. Aurelia tried her best to twist the tough plants together, but the sharp edges cut into her soft fingers. Tears of pain and anger spilled down her cheeks as she realized how useless her royal upbringing had made her. Seeing her wounded hands, the minstrel bought cheap clay pots for Aurelia to sell at the market. At first, she felt terrified that someone from her past would recognize her. But as she carefully arranged the smooth pots on a wooden bench, a quiet sense of purpose washed over her, replacing her old vanity. Disaster struck when a careless soldier galloped through the crowded market square on his heavy horse. The animal's hooves smashed directly into Aurelia's stall, shattering every single pot into worthless pieces. She sat in the dust, weeping, not out of anger, but out of heartbreak for the hard work lost. The minstrel comforted her and found her a job as a kitchen maid in the grand palace nearby. Wearing a simple gray apron, Aurelia spent her days peeling vegetables and cleaning heavy iron pots. The work was exhausting, but she kept her head down, completely humbled and grateful for a way to earn food. One evening, music echoed through the palace as a grand celebration began. Peeking through the door, Aurelia watched the elegant guests and felt a deep sting of shame for her past arrogance. She looked down at her plain apron, finally realizing how deeply she had hurt others with her cruel words when she sat on a throne. Suddenly, King Thrushbeard himself stepped into the hall, wearing his splendid royal robes. To Aurelia's horror, he grabbed her hand and pulled her into the center of the room to dance. In her panic, her apron pockets ripped, spilling broken pieces of food across the polished floor as the guests turned to stare. Aurelia burst into tears and tried to run away, but the king held her hand tightly. He looked into her eyes and revealed the truth with a warm smile. He explained that he was the minstrel who lived with her, the soldier who broke her pots, and the king she had mocked, all to help her find her true heart. Aurelia stood frozen as the truth washed over her like a warm wave. She looked down at her hands, then back at King Thrushbeard, realizing that every difficult lesson had been given out of pure love. Her old anger completely dissolved, replaced by a deep sense of gratitude for the person she had finally become. The palace servants brought Aurelia a beautiful new gown that matched the color of the forest they had walked through. As she stepped away from the mirror, she noticed the minstrel's old wooden lute resting on a velvet chair. She picked it up safely, realizing she would never forget the simple life that saved her.
When the heavy doors opened once more, Aurelia stepped into the hall not as a proud princess or a hidden servant, but as herself. The court cheered warmly as King Thrushbeard led his new queen to the front of the room. She looked out at the guests with genuine kindness, ready to rule with empathy. King Robert stepped through the grand ballroom doors, his eyes widening in pure astonishment as he saw his daughter. He did not see the proud, mocking princess he had banished, but a mature, glowing young woman who stood with quiet confidence. Tears of relief streamed into his silver beard as he realized his harsh lesson had worked. Aurelia tightly embraced her father, a heartfelt apology that dissolved years of tension between them. Turning to King Thrushbeard, she smiled through her tears, ready to start a true partnership built on honesty and respect. The grand hall erupted into cheers, celebrating a queen who finally understood the true value of kindness.